Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the very first episode of the MSP Online Marketing Podcast by Epwet Digital Services. So, what is the MSP Online Marketing Podcast, you ask? Great question. This is a podcast to help MSPs, telecoms, IT services, and other tech-based service providers to effectively market their services online. You know what, though? A lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about here, a lot of the principles and strategies, they're not just for tech services. They're going to be pretty universal. That means that if you have a small or medium-sized service-based business, even if it's not tech-focused, there's something here for you too. So who am I? I, of course, am your host, Chad Lyons. I am the owner and president of Epwet Digital Services. I have an MBA with a focus in IT management, a decade of experience in IT and technology, and I've been running Epwet Digital Services since its inception in 2016. Also, I've been told that I have a very soothing voice. Actually, I think maybe that was someone's nice way of saying that my voice puts them to sleep. Now, I hope that's not the case, but if it is, try to stay awake, okay? Stay with me. So, in the MSP Online Marketing Podcast, what we're going to be talking about is, of course, online marketing. That means that we're going to talk about things like search engine optimization. We'll talk about optimizing your website for conversions, social media, LinkedIn, Google Ads, content marketing, email marketing, building an effective online sales funnel, and just about everything else you can think of when it comes to online marketing. And you know what? I don't want to take too much time with this introduction, so let's just dive right in. And the first topic that we're going to cover, and we're going to cover it somewhat exhaustively, not just in this episode, but in a few episodes to come. And we're going to talk about search engine optimization. Now, why start with search engine optimization? Well, SEO is really where it all begins. Now, let me share something with you. How many people in the world do you think have internet access? Think about that and come up with a number in your head. Don't look it up. Okay, don't cheat. Just think of a number. Are you ready for the real number? Now, obviously, this is a moving target, but it's estimated to be around 4.66 billion people. Think about that. 4.66 billion people are online. Now, that's great because you have a huge audience, but it also means something else. It means that there's more competition now than ever before, and it's only going to get worse or better depending on your outlook. So when we talk about online marketing, we're talking about cutting through the noise and cutting out a section of that massive audience that wants what you are selling and then being able to reach them. So where are we starting with SEO? Well, if you think of online marketing like say you're building a pyramid, SEO, and you know what, really we're including your website in this as well, but your SEO is really the foundational layer that we're going to build everything else on top of. And you have to get your foundation right, because if the foundations are not right, then the rest of it's not going to stand. Now, does that mean that you have to be ranked number one on Google before you can run a successful Facebook ads campaign? No, of course not. However, it really is vital that you have at least knocked out the basics of SEO. And as you'll see, having done the SEO basics can actually help other campaigns be more successful than they would be otherwise. So let's get started and answer the basic question, what is SEO? Now, if you're already familiar with online marketing, maybe you think this is too basic, but you know, it's important to establish these types of things before we can really expound on them and dig deeper. You have to drink the milk before you can eat the meat, so to speak. So simply put, search engine optimization is the process of increasing your website's visibility to users on the internet, specifically on search engines like Google. So by investing in SEO, you're increasing the number of organic visitors to your site. As such, SEO is one of the best sources of qualified leads. Now, I mentioned organic visitors. So what does that really mean? It means that you don't have to pay for them, right? So it's people coming to your website that you're not actively advertising to. These are people who are searching for something, and Google or Bing or DuckDuckGo, they've decided that your website is a natural fit to provide an answer to those users. And there's really cool benefits, 3 good benefits of organic visitors. First, they have literally pre-qualified themselves by searching for something relevant to your products or services, right? They're already invested and interested in what you have to offer. You may have to convince them that you are the best provider for those things, but you don't have to convince them that they actually need what you have. They already know. They're the one who searched for it. Second, they've shown interest in your specific offering by clicking on your site's link. Now, there's still some convincing to do, some selling to do to convert them into customers, of course, but you're already a step ahead because they're already showing interest that you might be the one to solve the problem. And third, organic visitors are probably not going to feel like they're being sold to. Since the visit is in response to like a self-identified need rather than some kind of prompt or an ad that they saw, the whole experience for them is much more natural. You can still screw that up, of course. If you come on too strongly, or press too hard, or you have a ton of pop-ups. But really, if you're just kind of doing things right and letting the experience roll, it's hard to go wrong. So basically, you can think of organic visitors like walking customers in a store. They're great because you don't have to pay to advertise them. They've shown interest in your products and services all on their own, and all you had to do was be in the right place. In fact, the real estate analogy is probably really useful for SEO because it really is about like location, location, location. Think about it. So let's say you have a business on Main Street. What does that look like? Well, you've got tons of visibility, right? There's a lot of foot traffic. You get a lot of walking customers. People are going to walk in and browse, but some of those people are going to buy. And the more people that you have coming in, even if they're just coming in to browse, the more sales you're going to get. And that's all without spending a single dime on advertising. So what about the opposite? Let's say you're like in some back part of town. Are you still getting those benefits? Well, of course not. There's no visibility. There's low, if any, traffic, and there's almost no walking customers. In fact, if you're really in a bad part of town, then people will kind of avoid walking in unexpectedly, So in that case, you might as well be invisible. And when it comes to being a business or, running your business and getting sales and marketing, being invisible is like the worst thing you can be. So how do you improve your SEO? How do you get a piece of that prime Main Street real estate? There's a lot of things you could do. There's so many things that we could talk about, but we're going to get you started with just 5. And each of these we're going to cover in more depth in a future episode. So be sure to check back. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of whet your app's appetite. And if something stands out as something that you can do today, then shoot, make a plan and pitter patter. But otherwise, we'll dig into these more. So the 5 things are: first, make sure your website is built with SEO in mind. So that means making sure that it's fast, right? Because performance is a huge element. Google cares about end user experience, and because of that, they avoid sending people to websites that are slow because it results in a poor user experience. So you got to make sure that you're fast. It also means taking into consideration the technical stuff. So this means stuff like your sitemap, making sure that your site can be indexed, making sure your links and buttons are descriptive, using good metadata, and so on. So you've got to get that stuff right. Now, the cool thing about that technical stuff is you can kind of create a checklist out of it. And then you can just kind of go through and make sure you're good. And then every time you add a new piece of content or make a change to your website, review that checklist again, make sure that you're on track. Then you've also got to make sure that your website works on mobile devices. It needs to look good and it needs to work well. So if that design and functionality is off, it's going to mess you up. And it's similar to needing a good performance, because Google wants people to have a good experience when they visit your website. And with so much, web browsing taking place on mobile devices, specifically smartphones these days, that really is essential. Lastly, when it comes to your website, is security. You've got to make sure that your site's secure. That means using an SSL certificate. So, when you look at your URL, does it say HTTP or does it say HTTPS? And if it only says HTTP, that's dinging you. That's something against you. And then in addition to having that certificate, you've also got to make sure that your software is up to date. So that's number 1. You've got to make sure that your website is built for SEO. Okay, so number 2 is in your copywriting. So copywriting is the text on your website. It's like the text on your homepage, your blogs, your service pages, all that stuff. That's your copywriting. In your copywriting, you got to make sure that you're using keywords and topics that your customers would actually search for online. And we're really going to dig into this in our next episode, actually. We'll talk about how to come up with keywords, how to validate those keywords to make sure that they're actually going to be effective for you. Third, you need to make sure to have your Google My Business profile complete. So it needs to be up to date with all your current information, and you need to make sure that you have the primary category set as accurately as possible as well. This is really important. A lot of people don't really understand how important Google My Business is. But let me tell you, you will not show up in the local 3-pack if you don't have a good Google My Business profile. If you don't know what the local 3-pack is, well, we'll cover that too. But when people are doing local searches, the local 3-pack is often the first organic results they see. So at the top of the page, they're going to see some ads. And then when they scroll down, they'll see like a map of their local, like metropolitan area, or the local area there, and they'll see a few results. That's the local 3-pack. You want to be there. Trust me, you want to be there. It would make a huge difference for you. So number 3, get your Google My Business profile right. Number 4, build your online citations. People always get confused by this when I talk about it. What are online citations? Okay, it's not complicated. All this is it means getting your business listed in online directories. So the major online directories include websites like Google, Facebook, Bing, Yelp. In fact, if you just started with those 4, that's a great place to start. Google My Business, that'll take care of your Google. Getting a Facebook page, that takes care of Facebook. With Bing, you can actually import your information from your Google My Business profile. So it makes that a whole lot easier as well. And then, of course, creating a Yelp listing is free and relatively easy. And I think Yelp, this may not still be active, but at one time, they were also giving away $100 worth of advertising credits when you sign up for Yelp. So there's other benefits there as well. So that's what online citations are. It's all about getting listed on websites like that. And those are the big ones, Google, Facebook, Bing, and Yelp. But there's other ones too. There's a lot more. And in addition to those big ones, you're also going to want to get listed in directories that are specific to your industry. So for example, if you're selling voice over IP solutions, a good place to get listed would be voipreview.org. That'd be great, right? That's an industry specific site that will help you out. And localized websites as well. So think of like your Better Business Bureau, your local chamber of commerce, sites like that. Those will help you. It's kind of a little bit hit and miss, right? Like if you're in the local business bureau for, let's say Seattle, that's going to help you a lot more than say Spanish Fork, Utah, which is a pretty small town. But even so, when people go to those sites, they go because they want to support local businesses, right? And there are people who do that, believe it or not. And those people are going to see you there and they're going to want to support you. And so there's kind of the dual benefit of being listed locally. And then also, those people who are looking for local businesses will be able to find you. Okay, so the 5th thing that you need to do to get started with SEO is this: build a 5-star reputation. Do you know what the single most powerful marketing tool is? It's word of mouth. When a friend or a family member recommends something, people tend to listen. So the first step to building that great reputation is providing outstanding customer service. If you're doing the bare minimum, it's not going to work. You're going to have middling reviews, maybe 3.5 or 4 stars at most. So you really have to take a look at that process. Make sure that you're serving your customers well. Make sure that you're following up with them. You know what? Maybe we'll do an episode about this as well, specifically the customer service part, not just the reputation, which we are going to cover, but maybe the customer service part as well, because there's a lot of good information there. And I think a lot of people don't really have those systems set up. So, I'll take a look at that. Maybe that's something that we'll do. And in addition to providing that amazing customer service, you need to have a system in place to ask your happy customers for reviews. Okay. Very few people are just going to take that initiative and leave a review out of the goodness of their hearts. That doesn't mean that most people don't want to leave you a review. It's just that most people won't think of it. I'll give you an example. I have a barber that I've been going to for about 4 years now. Absolutely love them. I'm very picky when it comes to a barber. I have very coarse, curly hair, and it's difficult to deal with. And so I'm very picky when I go to a barber. Been with these guys for 4 years. Absolutely love them. And even though I work in this space of SEO and reputation management, it never occurred to me to leave them a review until they asked me. And of course, I was happy to do it. Did it immediately. And so, it's not that people don't want to. It's just that it's not the thing that's at the top of their mind. So have a system in place to ask customers for reviews. You also need to respond to reviews. This is important as well, because people will look at that when they see reviews on, say, Google or Facebook. We'll take Google as an example because you can respond there. They're going to read your responses. And if people are asking questions in the reviews, which does happen from time to time, or leaving negative reviews, people are going to pay attention to how you're responding. And if you're just ignoring it, then they take that into consideration too, especially when it comes to negative reviews. If you're not responding to negative reviews, then that review becomes the truth, right? Because you're not contesting it. You're not giving your own explanation of what happened. I'll give you another example here. We had a client who got a negative review because as a client was leaving their establishment, they had their kid with them, and there was a dog outside that barked at the kid. Of course, this was not related to the business at all. This is more like one of those emotional listings where, the kid was scared, the parent was upset, they went online, left a review. In responding to that review, we were able to kind of remediate that situation and explain like, hey, we're really sorry that happened. That's, it sounds terrible, but that's really not our fault. We didn't have anything to do with that. Even so, we're happy to, offer any kind of assurances you need. That client was so happy because of the thought and care that was put into that they ended up not only just removing their negative review, but leaving a positive review as well. And so you have the opportunity to reverse that sort of thing if you're thoughtful and if you're mindful and if you're responding to reviews. So those are the 5 things that you can do. Okay. And like I said, we're going to dive into these a little bit more in upcoming episodes. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. And this first episode's a little short, but you know what? That's okay. Short and sweet. So until next time.